So I was talking about the basic introduction of the agriculture sector in Pakistan. Before we discuss in detail, uh, I just want to give you an overview of the agriculture sector. In that overview, you need to know the agricultural growth rate. It's written over here that the agricultural sector is estimated uh, at 0.85% growth rate. So that means the growth of agriculture sector is 0.85%. The crops, uh, including all the crops, witnessed a negative growth of 4.4%. And that was mainly because of the negative growth of the important crops. I've already discussed that there are five subdivisions of the agriculture sector in Pakistan. Major crops, minor crops, or major crops can be known as the crops that are also important crops. So, so that is that this negative growth of the crop sector uh, in the agriculture is because of the negative growth of important crops. Amongst the important crops, we discussed that amongst the important crops, it's cotton, it's sugarcane, it's wheat. So the production of cotton, rice, and sugarcane also declined in Pakistan by 17.5, 3.3, and 19.4% respectively. That means, yes, Ashir, this all this data, all the details which I'm discussing with you right now is from the Economic Survey 2018-19. So this data is the latest data. One more thing, beta, you need to make it very clear. Your names on the Zoom should be your complete name, which is in your attendance. Make it sure. I will not admit any of the student who is not having his or her complete name on Zoom. No fake names entrance. I have blocked uh, entry into my classes. If I will allow, then you can enter. Yes, Heather Ali, I am recording this lecture. You will be getting this lecture, but do not consider recording first, but rather keeping in mind the importance. You need to understand the concepts during the class. If you have any question, you may also ask. So I was telling that in the important crops, sugarcane, rice, and cotton, all these three, they showed negative growth rates. Cotton showed 17.5%, sugarcane showed 3.3%, and whereas 19.4% for sugarcane. Whereas other crops, which can be considered as minor crops, they showed growth of 1.95%. That means growth of 1.95% means there was a positive change of 1.95% in the production, in the growth of uh, other crops, and that was mainly because of pulses and oil seeds production in Pakistan. And because of the decline in the growth rate of cotton, because of its decline, there was a decline in the cotton ginning by 12.7%. So that means this decline, the decline in the production of cotton, not only harmed the agriculture sector overall, but it also actually caused a negative growth in the ginning of the cotton. So when the cotton production is not there, the ginning of the cotton would also actually would have a negative growth as well. So yes, your question, Ashir, is what does ginning mean? Okay, ginning is the act of removing seeds from cotton with a cotton gin. Means it's a process of removing the seeds of cotton from the cotton we extract uh, from the plant of cotton. Okay, so other crops all, showed a positive growth rate. I have just told you it's 1.95%. Whereas there are three more sectors which I told you people are present in the agriculture sector. And there are major crops which are known as important crops. There are other crops which are also known as um, minor crops. Then there is a livestock sector. Then there is a fisheries sector, and then there is forestry sector. So there are five sectors amongst which total agriculture sector of Pakistan is distributed. Now, livestock sector, this livestock sector, it has a growth rate of 4%, while forestry, which is another sector of agriculture, also showed a growth rate of 6.47%. And that was because of the timber. It's a sort of what you can say, wood that is extracted from the hilly areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, KPK. So livestock showed a positive growth of 4%, whereas forestry showed remained a growth remained at the same growth rate of 6.47%. Now moving forward, the performance of agriculture sector in 2018-19 remained subdued. That means it was not that enough or sufficient. So I've already discussed, and the area, the the underperformance of agriculture sector hinged upon reduction in the area of cultivation. The reason why this agriculture sector did not give us good output was that there is there is a hint that it was because of the reduction in the area of cultivation in Pakistan, and some other reasons, lower water availability and drop in the fertilizer offtake. That means there are three main reasons why agriculture sector has only 0.85% growth rate. All those three reasons are reduction in the area of cultivation, lower water availability, and drop in the fertilizer offtake. Now the performance is the low performance is because of these reasons. I've already discussed the negative growth rates or of all these sugar, cotton, and rice. I'm not going to discuss. I've already discussed. Okay, other crops having share of 11.21% in agricultural value addition. That means within the agriculture sector, within the value addition of the agriculture sector, other crops or the minor crops contribute 11.21% of the total, whereas they contribute 2.08% towards the GDP, which is quite a good number. And if that contributes 2.8% towards the GDP, that is a good number. And that is mainly because of the pulses and oilseeds, which I've already discussed. This growth rate is mainly because of the pulses and the oil seeds. I am side by side preparing this lecture for you so that you may get help from these notes later on. when you will study at home. Okay, cotton ginning, I've just told you that it declined by 12.47%. Livestock having a share of 60.544% in the agriculture sector. That means the major share of the agriculture sector is coming from the livestock sector, which is one of the head of agriculture sector in Pakistan. And its contribution towards GDP 11 is 11.22%, which is quite a big number. Okay, then is the fisheries sector. The fisheries and forestry sector having share of 2.10% each in agriculture. That means both forestry and fisheries has a share of 2.10% in the agriculture sector of Pakistan, and each having a share of 0.79 and 6.4% in the agriculture sector respectively. Now, the strong growth in forestry is because of the timber production, which I've already discussed. So I'm not going to add up. Now, over here in this paragraph, in this whole paragraph, the discussion is generated on the production of various seeds, various vegetables, and the detail is given. So you can just give it an overview while you start studying this lecture at home. I'm not going to discuss this right now because you can just give it a reading. It is this whole is only whatever I will mark yellow, that is just for your information, that is just for your knowledge. uh, you just have to go through it for your information. That is not that important and not that relevant to your course. Now, one other issue that in Pakistan we face is the issue of the water, or the water crisis, the availability of water. There are two main types of crops that we have in Pakistan. One is known as kharif crops. It's written here, kharif crops. Other are known as rabi crops. These two types of crops are based upon the timing of a specific crop in 1 year. The kharif crops, their time period is from June to September. That means they are actually kharif crops are sown in April, June, and they are harvested in October or December. Means we sow the seed of kharif crops in, let me write here for your information. We sow it from April, June to October, December, and December. So these are the kharif crops. Kharif crops and the other are known as the rabi crops, which begins in October to December time period and goes on to April, June time period. Now the total availability, water availability for the kharif crops, which are April, June to October, December crops, uh, recorded was 59.6 million acre foot. Million acre foot is the measure of the water that is available for the agriculture sector, which means it remained a short by 11.2%, means there was a shortage of 11.2%, and the usage remained at 67.1%, and the remaining the difference between 67.1% and the 59.6 million acre foot, the remaining was used, the water used for the agriculture sector was extracted from the land, from tubers or through turbines. So now the second is Rabi season. Rabi season, I told you people, it starts from October, December to April, June. So these are the two seasons we have in Pakistan, the sowing seasons. And the water availability for the Rabi season was 24.8 million acre foot, which showed an increase of 2.5% as compared to a decline of 31.9% in 2017-18. So that means the current in the current situation, there was a shortage of water in the season of kharif crops, and water availability in the season of rabi crops was okay. There was no problem in that. Now we also use fertilizers for agriculture production. The fertilizers detail that how much fertilizers have been used, what was the requirement, what are the details related to the use of fertilizers. I'm marking it yellow, you just have to give it a reading for your information. Then this detail, this is about the decision making of the government. But the important detail in this is about the details of lending and microfinancing. Agriculture Credit Advisory Committee, which talks about the provision of credit to the farmers in the agriculture sector. We will also be discussing about the credit facility of the agriculture sector in Pakistan, as historically, as well as we will discuss the current situation. The current situation is just right mentioned here. The current situation is that we have the credit target. Credit means the loan provision to the farmers of Pakistan. The credit target was set at 1.25 billion for the current year, and there were 50 lending institutions which will be dispersing this credit, this 1.250 billion credit to the agriculturalists in Pakistan. Among those 50 agricultural lending institutions, 19 are commercial banks, 2 are specialized banks, 5 are Islamic banks, 11 are microfinance banks, and 13 are microfinance rural support programs. So during the 2018-19 time period, a total credit of 805 billion was dispersed, and which is 64% of the overall target. That means Target was to disperse this much credit to the agriculture sector to facilitate the farmers, but the total disbursement of the agriculture sector was 805 billion, which is 64% of the total target. So that means the target was not met by the Agricultural Credit Advisory Committee. The target, which was to provide the loans to the agriculturalists in order to facilitate them. This is an overview, this is a complete overview of the agriculture sector, current situation of the agriculture sector, which is existing in Pakistan. And this data is taken from Pakistan Economic Survey. Now further, since I have given you an overview of the agriculture sector of Pakistan, further let me tell you that I have not told you about the growth rates of agriculture sector. Let me tell you about the growth rate of agriculture. I've already told you about, I've already told you about the growth rates, but I have not talked about the share of the agriculture sector in the GDP. Let me check the updated share. Previously, I told you people that the total share of agriculture sector in Pakistan is 19.88%. Let me check if yes, it is 19.8% of the total GDP. So the share of the agriculture in the GDP is 19.8%. I will share this document. I will update this document on your Moodle account as well. You can download this for your information and for your further study. Now, further from this point onwards, we will be talking about the problems that are faced by the agriculture sector. Amongst those problems, we call them the critical issues of agriculture sector. Amongst those problems, among those issues, we will start discussing from agricultural price policy. Now, about the agricultural price policy, it is said that the prices which policymakers they decide for inputs and outputs of the agriculture sector to determine the direction of agriculture productivity and production. So what is a price policy? Price policy is the policy for pricing of inputs, okay, Asher, I might be wrong, 19.8%. I might be mixing it with 18.9%. That's good that if you find out that it is 18.9%. I was just telling it as 19.8%. So it's just a mixture of uh, the digits. That which you have found out, the recent one. Okay. So agriculture price policy, it's a policy of prices related to the prices of inputs used in the agriculture sector and the outputs which are produced by the agriculture sector. And why does government decide such a policy? In order to maintain a specific pricing in the agriculture sector. Now, when we say that government wants to maintain a specific pricing, then why does government wants to do it? Government wants to do it in order to increase, in order to make significant differences in the agriculture pricing. Let me prepare some handouts for you as well. So, agriculture pricing policy. Uh, what is this policy? It is the policy decision making for the prices of inputs and outputs. Okay. Then, for what purpose? In order to increase agricultural productivity and produce. So for what purpose? It will have significant uh, impact on income distribution of farmers, particularly small farmers. Then it can also have positive impact on the impact on agricultural output. Then it will also help increase exports of Pakistan. It will also improve living standards in Pakistan. It will remove uncertainty between the sectors, uncertainty between sectors share in Pakistan. If it will have a positive impact on income distribution, so it will reduce income disparity. Then it will actually increase the output. I've already discussed the output. Yes, productivity and produce. So this is a brief introduction of agricultural price policy, that what actually it does, why do we follow agriculture price policy, what are the targets of agriculture price policy in Pakistan. Uh, can you people see my share screen? The screen which I have shared, is it visible to you? Okay. Okay. So this is agriculture price policy. This agriculture price policy, I told you people, let me save it as well. That this is the decision of the prices, and this decision of the prices is in order to increase the positive impact on income distribution, um, to reduce the income disparity, and particularly of the small farmers, to have positive impact on agricultural output, to increase the exports of Pakistan, to improve living standards of the people working in the agriculture sector in Pakistan, and to remove uncertainty uncertainty in uncertainty in production between the sectors of between the sectors uh, of Pakistan. Now, this agriculture price policy, basically, there was a report that was prepared by National Commission of Agriculture, National Commission of Agriculture in 1988. This report talked about few of the decisions which were taken in favor of the agriculture pricing system. Those decisions were to keep the cost of food low, to keep the cost of food low by providing cheap raw material for the agriculture. Then there were minimization subsidies. Then there was inter and intra provincial provincial moments restriction. Then controlled prices, and some are of the view that the decisions taken by the policymakers, they actually decision taken by the policymakers were not effective enough to bring good changes in agriculture. This was the first attempt in the pricing policy system of Pakistan, which was done by the decision makers of that time, to improve the agriculture pricing policy system. Since it turned out to be um, did not turn out to be a positive impact for the agriculture pricing policy system, but though rather than not having any pricing policy, And if we compare it with a pricing policy or the existence of a pricing policy, it ultimately turns out that if no decision is taken, that is not good as compared to a decision taken. So in that, this National Commission on the Agriculture Pricing Policy, actually, it was able to take some decision. When it was able to take some decision, that means some decision is better than taking none of the decision. Now let me show you the agriculture price policy structure in Pakistan. I'm going to share a screen again. This document, which is on your screens right now, gives you a detailed overview. It talks about a detailed discussion of the agriculture sector, agriculture pricing policy sector of Pakistan. Now, it tells us that there are three formations of agriculture pricing policy. First formation was agriculture price policy up to mid 1960s. Next formation is positive pricing policies from 1972 onwards. Third is raising output prices from 1980s. So agriculture pricing policy structure is divided into three formations. This is the first formation. Let me mark it 1. This is the second formation. This is 2. This is the third formation. This is third. So we will discuss one by one that what are these formations or what do they actually talk about. Agriculture, there are two types of policies, negative pricing policy and positive pricing policy. Let me write here. There are two types of agriculture pricing policies, negative and positive.